My name is Sophia Hartley. My dad is one of the richest men in the East. I'm a very rude lady. I humiliate people and abuse the less privileged in the town until this happened. This is my life story. In the affluent neighborhood of Silver Brook, where mansions stretched like kingdoms and manicured lawns whispered tales of wealth, lived Sophia Hartley. At 18, she was the epitome of beauty and privilege, a walking testament to her father's immense financial success. Richard Hartley, a prominent businessman whose empire spanned multiple industries, had ensured that his only daughter wanted for nothing. Sophia's beauty was not just skin-deep. It was a weapon she wielded with calculated precision. Her long chestnut hair, always perfectly styled, cascaded over shoulders draped in designer clothing. Her emerald green eyes, framed by delicate lashes, could cut through people with a single glance. Every movement was calculated, every gesture a display of her perceived superiority. The town of Silver Brook knew her reputation well. She was not just wealthy, she was ruthlessly aware of her social standing. The local shopkeepers would whisper among themselves when she approached, their conversations dropping to hushed tones. Some feared her, others resented her, but none dared to challenge her directly. Her daily routine was a carefully choreographed performance of privilege. Mornings began with a personal trainer, followed by a meticulously prepared breakfast served by the house staff. Her wardrobe was a museum of designer labels, each piece selected to make a statement. And the statement was always the same: I am better than you. Marcus, her longtime driver, had witnessed her behavior for years. A middle-aged man with kind eyes and a patient demeanor, he had seen countless moments of Sophia's cruelty. Yet he remained professional, understanding that his job depended on maintaining her comfort and keeping her family's secrets. On this particular morning, Sophia decided she needed to visit the local market. Not because she needed to, her family could easily have the groceries delivered, but because she enjoyed the power. She felt walking among those she considered beneath her. Marcus, she called out, her voice crisp and commanding. Prepare the car. We're going to the market. The black Mercedes glided through the streets, a stark contrast to the modest buildings and simple lives surrounding it. As they approached the market, Sophia adjusted her designer sunglasses, preparing herself for the spectacle she was about to create. The marketplace was a vibrant tapestry of life: street vendors, small children, elderly sellers, each fighting to make their daily bread. Colors of fresh vegetables, the sounds of haggling, the smell of spices. It was a world far removed from Sophia's sterile, privileged existence. Marcus parked the car and opened the door for her. Sophia stepped out, her high heels clicking against the uneven ground, her designer handbag clutched tightly under her arm. A small girl, no more than 8 or 9, stood nearby selling packets of pure water. Her clothes were worn, her feet bare, her eyes hopeful. "Auntie," she called out, her voice a mixture of desperation and innocence. "Please buy pure water." Sophia turned, her face contorting with a mixture of disgust and superiority. "How dare you approach me?" she spat, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "Look at yourself, dirty warthog, selling water like a beggar. Don't you have any shame?" The little girl stepped back, her eyes filling with tears. The market around them fell silent, people watching the scene unfold. "I'm just trying to help my family," the child whispered, her voice breaking. "Help?" Sophia laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "You'll never help anyone. You're nothing but street trash. Go away before I call the guards to remove you." The child ran, her small body shaking with sobs, leaving behind the water packets scattered on the ground. Sophia continued her shopping, completely unaware of the eyes watching her, some filled with anger, some with pity, some with something darker. At the vegetable stall, an elderly woman carefully arranged her produce. She looked up at Sophia, her weathered hands sorting through tomatoes and green peppers. "These vegetables," Sophia demanded, pointing at a selection. "How much?" Not knowing the old woman is a ghost that disguises in human form. The old woman quoted a price, her voice soft but clear. "What?" Sophia exclaimed, her voice rising. "This small number of vegetables for this price? Are you trying to cheat me? You old fool, do you think you can decisive everyone you see in the market? Or do you think I'm illiterate like you?" The old woman voices out angrily. "Please stop insulting me. It's like you are very rude." How dare you talking to me in that manner, you lifeless, dirty pig? Before anyone could react, she raised her hand as if to strike the old woman. But something strange happened. The old woman didn't flinch. Instead, she simply disappeared. One moment she was there, the next, nothing. Just empty space where she had stood moments before. But her voice is still echoing in the empty space. A chill ran down Sophia's spine. The market around her seemed to grow quiet, the colors muting, the air growing thick and heavy. Little did Sophia know, her life was about to change forever. The first signs were subtle. A slight discomfort, a warmth spreading through her body. By the time Marcus drove her home, Sophia was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Her skin felt tight, her breathing labored. "Are you feeling well, Miss Sophia?" Marcus asked, his professional demeanor masking a hint of concern. Sophia didn't respond. Something was happening to her, something she couldn't explain. As the day progressed, her body began to change. The slim, perfectly toned figure she was so proud of started to transform. Her muscles softened, her frame expanding. By evening, she had gained significant weight, her designer clothes straining against her new form. Fever burned through her body. Her once perfect skin became flushed, her breathing heavy and labored. The mirror reflected a stranger, a body so different from the one she had meticulously maintained, so far from the image of perfection she had crafted. The first night was unbearable. Sophia's bedroom, once a sanctuary of luxury, now felt like a prison. Her body continued to change, each hour bringing new horrors. The sleek designer mirrors she had carefully positioned around her room now reflected a stranger, a body she no longer recognized. Her father, Richard Hartley, was away on a business trip. The house staff, accustomed to following her every command, now looked at her with a mixture of confusion and barely concealed shock. Maria, the head housekeeper who had served the family for over 2 decades, was the first to approach her. "Miss Sophia," Maria said, her voice trembling, "please, what's going on? Shall I call a doctor?" Sophia attempted to stand, but her newly enlarged body made movement difficult. Her designer silk pajamas, once perfectly tailored, now stretched and strained against her skin. The fever burned through her, making every movement an exercise in pain. "No," she shouted, her voice a mixture of anger and fear. "Nobody can know about this. Nobody." But even as she spoke, she knew something was terribly wrong. Her reflection was a grotesque transformation of her former self. The slim, athletic body she had spent years maintaining through strict diets and expensive personal trainers was gone. In its place was a body that seemed to have a life of its own, expanding, changing, defying every law of nature she understood. As she lay trapped in her room, memories began to flood her mind. Not the pleasant memories of her privileged life, but the countless moments of cruelty she had inflicted on others. She remembered the young waiter she had humiliated at her father's charity gala last year. He had accidentally spilled a drink on her designer dress, and she had made such a scene that he lost his job. The look of desperation in his eyes as he begged for understanding haunted her now. Then there was the cleaning staff at her father's corporate offices. She would walk through, making snide comments about their appearance, their work ethic, their very existence. Each word was a weapon, carefully chosen to cut deep. The market scene replayed in her mind. The little water seller, the old woman vegetable vendor who had simply disappeared. Had she done something? Was this some form of punishment? Panic began to set in. Sophia had always believed her wealth and beauty made her invincible. But now, trapped in this changing body, with a fever that seemed to consume her from inside, she felt utterly vulnerable. By the 3rd day, her condition had become impossible to hide. Her daddy returned from his trip, storming into her bedroom with a mixture of concern and anger. "What is happening to you?" he demanded, his business-hardened face showing genuine fear for the first time. Sophia could barely speak. Her body had continued its mysterious, large transformation. She was now several times her original size, her movement restricted, her breath coming in heavy gasps. "I don't know," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Something happened at the market, something strange." Her father called the best doctors in the region. Specialists arrived, ran tests, consulted with each other in hushed, concerned tones. But none could explain her condition. Medical science seemed to have no answers. The doctors spoke in technical terms outside her room. Unexplained cellular mutation, one said. Rapid weight gain, said another. Unprecedented inflammatory response. But Sophia knew it was more than medical science could explain. Something had happened in that market, something supernatural. And her transformation was far from over. As days turned into weeks, Sophia's world shrank to the confines of her bedroom. The once immaculate space now felt like a medical ward. Special equipment was brought in to support her massive body. Monitors tracked her vital signs, and nurses moved in and out with clinical precision. Her father's initial concern had transformed into a cold, calculated approach. Her father was a man who solved problems, who controlled every aspect of his life. But this defied all logic. His daughter, once the perfect symbol of his success, was now a medical mystery. Marcus, the loyal driver, was the only staff member who seemed to truly care. He would sit inside her room for hours, occasionally bringing her small comforts, a special tea, a book, a kind word. Unlike the others, he looked at her with compassion, not horror. In the quiet moments, Sophia was forced to confront her past. The memories of her cruelty played like a painful movie reel in her mind. The water seller's tearful face, the old woman at the vegetable stall, countless service workers she had humiliated, waiters, cleaners, drivers, shop assistants, all those she had treated as less than human. "What have I become?" she whispered to herself, tears streaming down her swollen cheeks. On a quiet Tuesday morning, something changed. A knock at the door, not the usual medical staff, not her father's assistants. Something different. Maria, the housekeeper, entered looking pale. Behind her stood an old woman. Not just any old woman, the same one from the market. The vegetable seller who had seemingly disappeared. "Who are you?" Sophia's voice cracked, a mixture of fear and recognition. The old woman's eyes were piercing. They held no anger, no revenge, just a deep, profound sadness. "I am everyone you have ever hurt," she said softly. "Every person you look down upon, every soul you make feel small." Sophia tried to move, but her body was heavy, trapped. The old woman approached, her footsteps making no sound on the expensive polished floor. "Privilege is not a weapon," the woman continued. "It is a responsibility. You used your position to tear others down, to make yourself feel important. But true importance comes from lifting others up." The old woman pulled up a chair, sitting beside Sophia's bed. Her presence was both terrifying and strangely comforting. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "What does it mean to be truly powerless? To be judged solely by your appearance? To be dismissed and humiliated?" Sophia wanted to argue, to defend herself, but the words died in her throat. She remembered every cruel word, every dismissive gesture. The times she had made people feel small, just to make herself feel big. "Your beauty was a gift," the old woman said. "Your wealth, a privilege. But you used them as weapons. Now you will learn what it means to be on the other side." Outside the room, the world continued. Richard Hartley made calls, consulted specialists, and tried to maintain control. But inside this room, something else was happening. A transformation far deeper than the physical changes Sophia was experiencing. The old woman's eyes seemed to hold entire universes of pain and understanding, and Sophia realized this was more than a punishment. It was a lesson. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia's transformation continued. The old woman, who seemed to materialize and disappear at will, became a constant, haunting presence. Her visits were lessons in empathy, each moment peeling back the layers of Sophia's privileged existence. Her body continued to change, not just in size, but in ways that defied medical understanding. Patches of her skin began to take on textures reminiscent of the surfaces she had once looked down upon, rough like the marketplace ground, calloused like the hands of workers she had dismissed. Marcus remained her only true ally. He would sit for hours, reading to her, bringing her small comforts. His kindness was a stark contrast to the life she had lived, a living example of the compassion she had never understood. "Your father is losing hope," Marcus said one evening, his voice gentle. "The doctors cannot explain what's happening to you." Sophia's world had shrunk to her bedroom, to the memories of her cruelty, to the piercing lessons of the mysterious old woman. She was no longer the confident, beautiful woman who had walked through life, believing herself superior. She was broken, vulnerable, truly seeing the world for the first time. On a cold, quiet night, the old woman returned. This time her presence was different, more ethereal, more final. "You have learned," she said, her voice like a whisper of wind. "But learning is not enough. Consequences must be paid." Sophia felt her body changing again. But this was different. This wasn't growth or swelling. This was something deeper, more fundamental. Her cells seemed to be breaking down, reconstructing themselves in ways that defied medical science. "Who are you?" Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. The old woman's smile was both sorrowful and just. "I am the collective pain of those you have hurt. I am the voice of those who had no voice when you walked this earth." Her father burst into the room, his powerful exterior crumbling. He is the man who had controlled empires, who had built walls of wealth around his daughter, and could do nothing now. As dawn broke, Sophia's body began to dissolve. Not in a grotesque way, but like water dissipating into mist. Her physical form became translucent, then transparent, then nothing. Marcus watched, tears in his eyes. The old woman stood silent, a representation of justice more profound than any court could deliver. Her father collapsed, his screams of grief echoing through the mansion. The daughter who had been his pride, his perfect reflection of success, was gone. But she was not truly dead. In the marketplace, in the eyes of the water seller who had been humiliated, in the smiles of the workers she had once dismissed, she lived on as a memory, a lesson, a warning. The world continued. The marketplace bustled. Life went on. But somewhere in the collective consciousness of those who had suffered, Sophia Hartley's story remained. A testament to the true meaning of humanity, compassion, and the price of unchecked privilege. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this channel, like and comment at the comment section.